The sun hung low over Bleeding Rock Ranch, casting long, crooked shadows across the red dirt. Eli Varn stood with his boots buried in dust, eyes fixed on the bull that had ended his family. The animal stood like a statue behind the gate, broad, black and silent. Midnight Roan wasn't just a bull. He was memory. He was law-shaped in muscle and horn. And now, after 3 long years, he was back, staring down the boy who was never supposed to survive. Eli, 12 now, wore the sun-faded flannel of his father, Creed Varn, a man whose name still echoed through rodeo circuits from Amarillo to Lubbock. Creed was a legend until the night Midnight Roan dropped his full weight mid-buck and crushed the breath from him. That night stole more than a father. It took the color out of the world. Since then, Eli hadn't spoken much. Not to his mother, Roan, not to Pastor Goss, and definitely not to strangers. But here he was, drawn back to the place, where the dust still remembered the sound of his father hitting the ground. The cowboys behind him, Grover Slate, Tull Weatherby, and young Rush Gatlin, watched in silence, their worn hats tipped low, their bodies tense. No one dared speak. Midnight Roan wasn't known for stillness. He was rage on hooves. Yet now, he didn't move an inch. His nostrils flared once. His eyes locked onto Eli's like he knew. Like the past had a scent, and the boy was carrying. Eli stepped closer to the pen, clutching a thin roll of crumpled bills. It wasn't enough to buy anything. Not a bull, not even time. But that wasn't why he came. His voice came low, steady, unexpected. You remember, don't you? The words cracked through the air like dry wood splitting. Midnight Roan shifted slightly. Not aggressive, not afraid. Just listening behind him, Rush whispered. That ain't right. Grover crossed his arms. That bull's never still. Not like that. But Tull Weatherby didn't speak. He only watched, his jaw tight, his eyes narrowed. He'd seen this kind of moment once before. Right before the storm. Eli didn't flinch, didn't blink. He stood there, eye to eye with the beast that shattered his world. I came back for answers, he said again. But the truth was, he had no idea what kind of answer he was about to get. And what happened next would start a chain of events no one in Bleeding Rock would ever forget. That night, the sky above Bleeding Rock boiled with thunder, though no rain came. Eli lay awake on the cot in the back room of the trailer, the walls thin as paper, the wind rattling them like bones. Roan Varn sat at the kitchen table just a few feet away, smoking quietly, the tip of her cigarette glowing like the last ember of something that used to be hope. Neither of them said a word. They hadn't in days. Roan hadn't been to the rodeo grounds since Creed died. She didn't need to. Every creak of a screen door, every distant whoop of a cowboy's holler on the wind was enough to take her back to that night. But today, word had reached her. Eli had stood face to face with the bull, Midnight Roan, and the bull hadn't moved. That alone was enough to bring old ghosts into her lungs like cold air. She wanted to scream at the boy. She wanted to hold him. Instead, she smoked and stared. Outside, headlights lit up the dust as a battered Ford rolled into the yard. A moment later, a heavy knock hit the door. Eli was already on his feet. He didn't ask who it was. He knew. It was Tull Weatherby. The old man stood in the doorway, hat soaked with sweat, a crooked scar running down from his left ear to his jaw. Tull didn't believe in small talk, especially not after dark. I seen it, he said flat. That bull looked at you like he'd seen a ghost. Roan didn't get up. She barely turned her head. A bull can't see a ghost, Tull. Just a boy trying to be a man too early. But Tull stepped inside anyway. His boots left red prints on the floor. He looked at Eli with something like concern, though it was buried deep. It ain't just about the bull, Roan. Creed's death, it wasn't clean. There was something. Wrong that night. I never said anything because I didn't know what I was seeing. But now, I ain't so sure. Eli felt it in his gut. The way the room shifted, like someone had opened the door to something foul and forgotten. His voice cracked to quiet again. What do you mean it wasn't clean? Tull looked him square in the eye. I mean, your daddy didn't fall wrong by accident. I think someone made it happen. And just like that, the silence that had lived in that trailer for 3 years finally shattered. Tull's words hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't clear. Roan's face didn't move, but her fingers trembled as she crushed out her cigarette. Eli stared at the old man, heart thudding in his chest like hooves on packed dirt. The idea that someone, not just a bull, might have killed his father. It clung to him like sweat in the heat. He wanted answers, but now that they were coming, they felt like bullets. You're saying my daddy was set up? Eli asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tull sat down slowly at the edge of the table, his shoulders heavy with something that looked like regret. I'm saying there was more going on that night than what we all saw. Creed didn't just ride. He was pissed, real pissed. Got into a shouting match before he mounted up. With someone close, real close. Roan's eyes snapped to Tull. Who? Her voice wasn't loud, but it hit like a slap. Who did Creed argue with? Tull hesitated. His eyes flicked to Eli, then back to Roan. Grover Slade. That name landed like a stone in a still pond. Grover had been Creed's closest friend, godfather to Eli, and one of the senior hands at Bleeding Rock. A man of hard hands and few words. Grover was the kind of cowboy who didn't blink at a storm. To think he'd fought with Creed, or worse, seemed impossible. But Tull's eyes didn't blink either. I didn't hear it all, Tull continued. But Creed was shouting about betrayal, about someone taking money. Said he'd burn it all down before letting them sell him out. Roan stood now, her hands on the table, her face pale with a fire behind her eyes that hadn't burned in years. You should have told me. I didn't know what I knew, Tull muttered. Not till I saw that bull stand still for your boy like it owed him something. That ain't nature, that's memory. Eli looked between them, trying to hold it all in. The suspicion, the hurt, the confusion. Grover had taught him how to saddle a horse. Grover had held his hand at the funeral. And now, he might have had a hand in putting his daddy in the dirt. Outside, the wind picked up, lifting dust and dry leaves into the night. Something had been buried for too long, and now it was pushing its way to the surface. And Eli, whether ready or not, was about to start digging. The next morning, Eli left before the sun rose, boots kicking up cold dust as he crossed the yard. Roan watched him from the window, arms folded, lips pressed tight. She didn't stop him. She knew where he was going, and maybe, deep down, she knew he needed to go. Some truths had to be faced standing up, even if they knocked you to your knees. Grover Slade lived in a trailer just off the edge of the old auction yard. The place looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the last cattle boom. Rusted equipment, busted lawn chairs, and a coiled-up garden hose that hadn't touched water in months. Eli approached slow, heart pounding, hands shaking, but face set in stone. He knocked once, then again, harder. Grover opened the door still wearing yesterday's shirt, half-buttoned, a coffee mug in one hand and a revolver in the other. Not raised, but visible. When he saw Eli, he lowered the gun and stepped aside without saying a word. The silence between them felt heavier than the heat. You got something to say, son? Grover asked, voice rough like gravel. Eli didn't blink. Did you fight with my dad the night he died? Grover sighed, set the mug down, and sat heavily in a worn-out armchair. Ain't a simple question, he said, and I ain't proud of the answer. Eli stepped forward, eyes narrowing. You took money? Betrayed him? Grover leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Your daddy found out about a deal I made. The rodeo was broke, Eli. Bleeding money. Creed wanted to fix it clean. I made a choice to fix it fast. Sold out part of the grounds to a syndicate from Amarillo. They were pushing for bull breeding rights, including Midnight Ruin. Eli's stomach twisted. He said he'd burn it down before letting him take that bull. Grover nodded slowly, and I believe he would have. That's why I told him I was going to pull the deal. But he didn't believe me. Thought I'd already gone too far. The room fell quiet. The ticking clock on the wall felt louder than thunder. Eli wanted to scream, to break something, but all he said was, "Did you rig the ride?" Grover's eyes snapped up, sharp now. "No, boy. I'm a fool, not a killer." But Eli didn't fully believe him. Not yet, because lies and half-truths were easier to swallow than guilt and bleeding. Rock was built on both. The next few days passed like a storm that never broke. Eli kept his distance, from Roan, from Grover, even from Tull. He spent his time near the old fence line where Bleeding Rock ranch faded into nothing but dried up grass and memories. And yet, even there, he felt it, the presence of that bull. Midnight Ruin haunted him in silence, not with fear, but with something worse, familiarity. He started visiting the holding pen alone, slipping past the fence after dark, crouching near the bars, just watching. Midnight Ruin would stand still for long stretches, eyes glinting in the moonlight. He never charged, never even snorted. Eli began to wonder if the bull remembered that night too. Not just the moment Creed fell, but what led up to it. Maybe animals couldn't speak, but they saw. And Eli needed someone who had seen it all. Late one night, while Eli crouched beside the pen, he heard footsteps crunch behind him. He turned, half expecting Roan, but it was Zim Calder, a ranch hand from the outskirts and known troublemaker. Zim was young, wild-eyed, always smelled like oil and blood. He leaned against the fence like he owned the place. "You're Varn's kid," Zim said, lighting a match with his thumbnail. "Heard you been poking around where you shouldn't." Eli didn't respond. Zim smiled. "Careful who you trust, kid. Creed made enemies, big ones. Men who don't take kindly to threats. What are you saying?" Eli asked, standing now, fists clenched. Zim took a long drag from his cigarette, then flicked the ash. I'm saying your daddy wasn't bucked off. That bull was riled up on purpose. Juiced. Meaner than usual. Someone dosed him." Eli froze. "You mean?" Zim shrugged. "Rodeo is full of shadows, boy. You just stepped into them." Before Eli could say anything, Zim walked off, disappearing into the dark like he'd never been there. But his words stuck. The idea of someone drugging Midnight Ruin? It wasn't just betrayal. It was murder. Eli stared at the bull, now breathing slow and steady in the dark. If Zim was telling the truth, then someone had weaponized the animal against his father. And the only witness left was standing right in front of him. Something cracked inside Eli in that moment. Not pain, not grief, but resolve. He would find out who did it, no matter who had to fall. The morning came thick with heat, the kind that made sweat bead before the sun even cleared the horizon. Eli stood outside the auction barn, fists balled in his pockets, watching the pickup trucks roll in one by one. It was auction day at Bleeding Rock. Cattle, broncs, even retired bulls, all lined up under sun-stained tarps. But today, Eli wasn't here for livestock. He was here for the man who had lied to him. Grover Slade stood near the corral, clipboard in hand, barking orders to two younger ranch hands. When he saw Eli approaching, something in his face changed. Not fear, but recognition. Like he'd been expecting this moment. Eli didn't hesitate. He walked right up, right through the crowd, and planted himself in Grover's shadow. "You knew," Eli said. "Not just about the money, about the drugging. You knew someone dosed that bull." Grover's jaw tightened. Zim Calder's mouth runs faster than his brain. That ain't a denial. Grover's eyes scanned the yard. Too many ears, too many people. Not here, kid. Walk with me. They moved behind the barn, where the light dimmed and the noise faded into wind. Grover finally turned, voice low, sharp. You don't know what you're stepping into, Eli. That bull wasn't supposed to kill your daddy. He was supposed to buck hard, just enough to make Creed back off the deal. Eli felt like the ground shifted beneath him. You let him do it? Grover shook his head, but his silence said otherwise. I told them no, but someone else got to the bull before I could stop it. Who? Eli asked. Before Grover could answer, a loud metal clang rang through the air, followed by a burst of shouts near the pen. People ran. Dust rose. Something was happening near the holding gates. Eli turned to look, but Grover grabbed his arm. Don't go, he warned. You're being watched. That's when Eli saw it. A tall man leaning against the far fence, arms crossed, cowboy hat pulled low. Not part of the ranch. Not part of anything Eli recognized. Just ... there. Still as a snake in tall grass. Watching him, waiting. Grover's voice dropped to a whisper. They're not gonna let this truth out, Eli. Not without a fight. But Eli had already made his choice. He was done running. If there were snakes in the field, he dragged them out into the light himself, even if it meant stepping into the pit alone. That night, the silence on the ranch was different. It wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that made dogs growl at shadows and screen doors creak without wind. Eli sat at the kitchen table, a notebook open in front of him, every name and detail he'd gathered scrawled in uneven pencil. Grover, Zim, the Amarillo Syndicate, Midnight Ruin. He circled one word over and over. Why? Roan entered quietly, carrying a mug of black coffee, her eyes tired but focused. She'd known something had shifted in her son. He wasn't grieving anymore. He was hunting. She set the mug down beside him, her voice softer than usual. I remember the night Creed came home with blood on his knuckles. Said somebody tried to buy him out behind his back. Said they'd be sorry. Eli looked up. You know who it was? Roan hesitated, then shook her head. No, but he was scared. And your father? He didn't scare easy. Eli nodded slowly, flipping the page. Someone's still watching me. I saw him at the auction. Tall, black hat. Didn't speak. Roan's hand froze on the table. That's Harbin Voss, she whispered. Used to ride bulls. Got banned after a steer died in the chute under mysterious circumstances. He's muscle for the Amarillo buyers now. If he's here ... this ain't about cattle anymore. The name hit like a slap. Harbin Voss, the kind of man you only heard about in half-finished stories and whispered threats. Eli had seen the way he stood, calm like a man who didn't need to prove anything. And now he knew why. The next day, Eli and Tull met behind the chapel, a spot nobody used since the roof caved in 2 summers ago. Tull handed Eli a crumpled folder, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, even a photograph. This is what I got, he said. Creed wasn't the only one who died that year. 2 other riders. Both went up against bulls from the same breeder. Both never made it home. Eli flipped through the pages, his hands trembling. The same syndicate. The same bull bloodline. A pattern hiding in plain sight. They've been masking these deaths as accidents, Tull said. And anyone who asked too many questions, well, they got quiet. Real quick. Eli looked up, jaw clenched. Then it's time to make some noise. Tull gave him a long look. You sure you're ready for what comes with that? I don't care anymore, Eli said. I'm not scared of the dark. I was born in it. The barn was quiet at night. Too quiet. The cattle had been moved. The lights were off, but something about the air felt wrong. Eli slipped through the side entrance with a flashlight clutched in one hand and his father's old belt knife in the other. He wasn't there to spy anymore. He was there to expose them. What started as grief had become something sharper. Purpose. Fire. Tull had told him there'd be documents, shipment records, breeding logs, signed contracts, all hidden in Grover's old storage locker behind the tack room. If what they suspected was true, then this was the paper trail that could bring the whole operation down. Eli moved slow, footsteps silent on the dirt floor, heart thudding like hooves in his chest. But before he reached the back wall, a voice echoed through. "The dark should have stayed quiet, kid." Eli froze. The flashlight beam caught the shape of a man stepping out from the shadows. Harbin Voss, taller than he remembered, eyes cold as stone. His hand rested casually on his belt, where a knife hung sheathed but close. Too close. "I ain't here to play cowboy," Harbin said. "I clean up messes. And you're looking more and more like a mess." Eli didn't move. "You killed my father." Harbin laughed, low and joyless. "Kid, I didn't kill nobody. I just gave the bull a little push. It was business. Your daddy made noise, and noise gets handled." Eli's blood went cold. He glanced toward the tack room, just a few yards away. He could make it, maybe. But Harbin took a step closer. "Run, and I'll gut you before you hit the door." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from behind. The barn door flew open and Tull Weatherby stepped in, shotgun leveled. "Step away from the boy, Harbin." Harbin didn't flinch. He turned, slow, calculating. "You don't got the spine, Weatherby." Tull cocked the gun without a word. That was answer enough. Eli took the chance and dashed to the tack room, heart racing, shoving aside old saddles and moldy crates until he found it. A rusted metal box, half buried under hay. He pried it open. Inside were the papers. Contracts, payments, names. Proof. Outside, Harbin's voice boomed. "This ain't over." "No," Eli muttered, clutching the documents tight. "But it's about to be. Because now, for the first time since Creed Varn hit the dirt, the truth had a voice. And it was Eli. By morning, the whole town was buzzing. Not with the usual gossip about cattle prices or weather patterns, but with names. Dangerous ones. Eli's, Creed's, Grover's, even Harbin Voss. Word had gotten out, fast and messy. Tull had taken the documents straight to Sheriff Hartley, and while the man didn't say much, the way his jaw clenched told Eli everything. The system was about to crack. But Bleeding Rock wasn't a town that liked truth. It liked quiet. And Eli had just torn the quiet, wide-open dot at the diner. People stopped talking when Roan walked in. At the feed store, men exchanged glances instead of greetings. Eli had never felt more eyes on him, some filled with respect, others with warning. He wasn't just Creed Varn's boy anymore. He was the one who stirred the dust everyone tried to bury. Tull met him near the church ruins that evening, cigarette lit, a worn folder under one arm. "We got enough to bury him," he said. "But it won't matter unless we push it into the light." "Sheriff's gonna help?" Eli asked. Tull exhaled slow. He's caught in the middle, knows the truth. But the syndicate's tied up, in half the town's pockets. If this goes public, it'll burn more than a few barns. Eli looked out over the empty lot where his father once taught him how to rope. "Then let it burn." Later that night, Roan found a letter wedged in the screen door. No return address, no signature. Just one line, handwritten in ink that had bled into the paper. "Call off the boy, or next time, it's you." She brought it to Eli without saying a word. He read it twice, then folded it slowly. "I'm not stopping," he said. Roan nodded. "Then we do this together." Something shifted in her face. Not fear, not even anger. Just steel. For years, She'd held her pain close, but now the pain had a direction. Eli wasn't just her son anymore. He was a threat. And threats in Bleeding Rock didn't live long unless they stood tall. The next day, as they prepared to take the documents to Amarillo Media, Eli spotted a truck he didn't recognize parked across from the gas station. Same black hat, same quiet eyes. Harbin Voss was back, and this time, he wasn't hiding. They reached Amarillo just before noon. The horizon stretched wide and blinding, the wind kicking dust against the windshield like warning shots. Eli sat in the passenger seat, clutching the folder like it was a living thing. Roan drove in silence, but her eyes were sharp, jaw clenched. They weren't just carrying papers. They were carrying the weight of everything the town tried to forget. Outside the TV station, Tull waited, leaning against his old pickup with a look that mixed pride and fear. "This is it," he said, nodding to Eli. "Once this hits the air, there's no going back." Eli looked at the building, the glass doors, the satellite dish spinning slowly overhead. "Good," he said. "I'm tired of going back." But Bleeding Rock wasn't done fighting. As they crossed the parking lot, Harbin Voss appeared from behind a delivery truck, hands empty, but eyes cold. "You think you're heroes?" he growled. "You think anyone's gonna believe a broken cowboy, a widow, and a kid with a chip on his shoulder?" Tull stepped forward, hand on his belt. "They don't have to believe us. They'll believe the truth." Harbin took another step, then another. But before anyone could move, a voice rang out, loud, clear, from behind the camera crew, now rushing out of the building. Midnight Ruin. The bull was in a trailer across the lot. Roan had arranged it. One final piece of the story. The beast that was made into a weapon, now standing calm behind steel bars, watching the man who once tried to use him. Harbin hesitated. Eli stepped toward him, slow, fearless. "You look scared," he said. Funny, that bull never looked scared. Not even after what you did. The station manager waved them in. The doors opened, and just like that, Harbin Voss turned and walked away. Not in defeat, but in silence. The kind of silence that follows a man when he knows the game is over. That night, the story aired across the state. Syndicate names, doctored bulls, buried riders. Creed Varn's name cleared. Midnight Ruin retired permanently to a sanctuary outside Lubbock. And Eli, no longer the boy who survived, stood with his mother on the porch, watching the stars. Over Bleeding Rock, what now? Roan asked Dodd. Eli looked out at the dark fields. We start living again. For him, for us. And as the wind rolled across the pasture, somewhere in the distance, the bull stood still again.